Two, there's that. Welcome to the Figma workshop series. My name is Dylan Nguyen. I graduated from UTD last year. I got my bachelor's in cognitive science and then a master's in human computer interaction. I worked at Geico for a while and then I started freelancing at the beginning of this year. And I was an officer for the X Club for the time I was at school. So if you guys have been around the club for a while, you might have seen me. I'll allow Sanjana to introduce herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Sanjana. I also went to UTD with Dylan and was also in not Figma Club, was in UX Club with him as well. And I graduated last year. I've been working in JP Morgan. I worked in Paycom before, UX designer. And yeah, I'm really excited to help you guys on this journey in learning Figma.
All right.
So, oh, go ahead. I'll just get started. Okay. Cool. So before we get into Figma and the technical stuff, just want to give you guys a high-level overview of the UX design process. I know we have people from a lot of different backgrounds and different levels of knowledge about UX. So this is what we call the double diamond process. It's just a framework for people to understand what the UX design journey kind of looks like. And it starts first with the problem. So the problem, it starts and then we go into discovery mode. So this phase is like the research phase, and in discovery mode, we're like, trying to understand the problem. We're trying to see what are different ways of us to think about this and like kind of really like framing the problem statement. And the more we start narrowing it, that's when we kind of define it. So once we've done all the exploratory work, that's why the diamond kind of like goes out, because it's more generative and you discover, you like go out of the bounds. And then when you start narrowing it down, that's when you define and you get to that point where you're like, okay, this is our problem statement, and this is exactly who we're solving the problem for, and this is why we're solving the problem. Then we go into design and the test phase, which again broadens the scope a little. You kind of explore all sorts of solutions, lots of brainstorming. And then finally, when you've narrowed it down and you're ready to deliver your solution, that's the end of the double diamond. This is also to say that it's not a linear process. You know, it keeps going in cycles. Like once you go to the solution, you can go back to the problem, or maybe once you get to your solution, you need to go back and reiterate and go to the design phase again and then deliver again. So that's the flexibility of this double diamond, is it's a continuous loop. It keeps going. Now, in the world of design and in the corporate world, we have all these different roles because this is not something that just one person can do, right? So here's a high level idea of how it's usually split. Product, which is like your product owner or product manager, they're usually the ones that come up with like the business case and the business requirements. So they're like, okay, we need to do this, or they're probably trying to like refine an existing feature or create a new feature. So when product comes to us with requirements, the researcher's job then usually becomes validating that and exploring that and seeing how we can define this problem. So product and research usually do most of that, beginning phase of this double diamond. And then the UX designer usually jumps in when we get the list of requirements from product, or usually we're involved in the process a little because we're like, following along the problem. But our skills come to play the best in this phase when we're actually in Figma, we're creating designs and coming up with solutions. And lastly, we hand it off to our developer for the delivery phase so that we can launch a product in the end.
So you might be wondering why we're teaching you Figma. Now that we've talked about kind of how the design process works, let's relate that to the tool we're going to actually be teaching you guys about. So in terms of research, FigJam is a really popular application for doing so. It is a whiteboard application. So if you use anything like Miro or Mural, it's very similar to that. And it's just a great way for people to collaboratively brainstorm. So typically, this will be done with other designers or maybe your PMs. At the start of a project, you'll come together and kind of create a lot of ideas for how your product or your process might look. And because of that, FigJam is a really easy way to get ideas down on sticky notes and kind of share those around. It's also a great way to share key research insights. So if you do your research and you have it all documented, you might take very specific stats that you find to share with other people in a very visual way. So you can leave sticky notes leaving like key insights for either your PMs or other designers or your fellow researchers. And then lastly, it's just a very easy way to visually display things for anyone you might be presenting information to. So you might make user flows, journey maps, you might make competitive analyses all in FigJam. And it's a great way to be able to show all that information to like key stakeholders or just other people you might be working with. On the design side of things, Figma is also really good. This is what we're primarily going to be teaching you guys because it's a great tool for creating hi-fi mockups. And what that means is you're able to create very high fidelity representations of what the user would actually be interacting with on the screen. But doing all of that without having to code anything, without having to go in and spend a whole bunch of time making sure that it's actually functional, right? So you're able to make the screens look how they would look in actual usage without having to do the hard part of it, right? And that being said, you can also make prototypes, which means that you're able to add the actual interactions in there and make sure people understand exactly how that application would work. This is great for sharing with other designers. It's great for sharing with people who you might be testing out ideas on. And it's also great to share with stakeholders so that they have a better idea of what the end user is actually going to see. And then lastly, it's just a great way to collaborate with designers and developers. In terms of developers, there's a thing called dev mode on Figma where you can very easily translate anything a designer makes into actual code. So, for example, if you have a button asset that a designer has made, dev mode allows them to look at that button and understand exactly what the padding looks like, what the colors look like, all of the key information, and then translate that over to the code of their choice, whether that's HTML or CSS or whatever else you might be using. It's a really great way to collaborate and complete that handoff, right? So overall, how does learning Figma help you? It's just kind of become the industry standard. Pretty much any workspace you walk into will be using Figma. And with that being said, the tool is just a tool. So you obviously want to make sure that you have your key design fundamentals down before you go into anything like this. But hopefully, us teaching you the tools will help you with your future. So, what does our class schedule look like for the next, I guess, 7, 8 weeks here? Today, we're going to be introducing into Figma, which we just did. And then Sanjana is going to help you guys understand how to make low fidelity wireframes. 2 weeks from now, I'll be going over how to make high fidelity wireframes, so how to make those a little bit more realistic. After that, Sanjana is going to talk about prototyping. So, how do we actually add those interactions and make it a little bit more realistic? And then we're going to be talking about how to make your workflow a little bit easier. So, I'll be talking about components. And then after that, Sanjana will talk about auto layout, and then I will talk about variables in November. This is like how to take your prototypes to the next level. And then lastly, November 12th, or yeah, November 12th, we'll be talking about a special topic. This will just depend on whatever you guys tell us that you want to learn. So we'll be taking your feedback and then using that to build a class around. So hopefully that is an interesting class for you guys. So what are we going to be doing for this semester, right? What are you guys going to be building towards? Well, Sanjan and I took a little bit of time to make an application. This is called 365. It is a habit tracker. So this is designed for someone to be able to start building up a habit that they want to make sure that they're consistent with, right? So all of this is built in Figma. As you can see, we arrive at a landing page. We're going to go ahead and sign up and create an account. So our name, Sanjana. We're going to say her email is sunj@gmail.com. And then we're going to give it a password, and the password's going to be Dylan is so cool. And we're going to sign up. You can see here that it's asking us what habits we want to track. So we're going to say drink water. We're also going to say meditate. I spelled that wrong. That's fine. And then we're also going to say read. I spelled that wrong. More. Read more. Continue. And with all that being said, we go to this next page. There's a little profile picture. It says, "Hi, Sanjana. Let's achieve your goals together." Right. So the idea is that when you do one of these goals, so let's say we meditate in the morning. After our meditation, we're going to go into the app. We're going to come to here. We're going to click this button. It's going to track that that has been done. And then let's say we drink water throughout the day. We are going to click that. And then we read a book at night. So we're going to click that. And you see, once we complete all our goals, it's going to give us a little pop-up congratulatory screen, and we're going to look at our progress. So you can see with meditation for this month, we are pretty consistent. We missed 2 days, but that's fine. We're on a 10-day streak down here. We can slide over, look at our reading. We've been less consistent with this, but that's okay. We're still making progress. We're on a 6-day streak. And finally, with water, we've been doing that every day this month. And if we look back at our previous month, so August, we can see that Sanjana has been drinking water every single day. She's on a 54-day streak. She's doing great. So that is pretty much the application that we made. Hopefully, by the end of this workshop series, you guys are able to make something better. And yeah, I'll leave it off to Sanjana so that she can get started on teaching you guys the very basics of how to do something like this.
Okie dokie. Thanks, Dylan. That was a good intro. So for this class, we're going to be talking about low fidelity wireframes, which think of it as like the most basic building blocks before you actually create something pretty. So the screen you see on the left, where it's like just a bunch of boxes and rectangles, that is a low fidelity wireframe, and it really helps brainstorm solutions. So that when you actually come up with like your final design, you have different layout options to consider. If you look at those two Spotify screens, they're visually very different, right? The layout of this one has like a title and like a carousel, and another title and a carousel kind of vibe, and then the other one just has a bunch of tiles and a bunch of clickable things, concerts near you, you know. The layout is very different, but that's what low fidelity helps you with. It helps you understand, okay, what's the most important thing the user's going to look at first? So information hierarchy, like how are they going to read and process these different things? And if you're ever debating between like, oh, should I go with this style or should I go with this layout? Then, you know, you can just do simple tests with low fidelity wireframes. Just ask people to see things top to bottom, see where they're focusing. All of that just really helps get us started in making pretty designs. So that's what we're going to do today. Before we get started, we have to send the Figma link and the password to you guys, right? Do that.
Yeah, so we'll send a link in the chat. This will be a link to our Figma file, and then the password will also send in the chat. I'm going to stop sharing my screen here. I think I've already stopped. And then we'll paste the link here. So if you look in the chat, there should be a link. If you click on that, it'll probably ask you for a password. And the password should be Figma24. If that doesn't work, just type it in the chat and I'll figure it out. But that should be all you need to do to get into our file. And it looks like a bunch of you guys are already in, so it looks like it
Yeah.
works.
See the numbers going up. Okay, and I'll give you guys just a few minutes to hop on the file. Please try not to click on anything or touch anything yet, especially if you're new. We'll help you learn. I feel like this class, you're either going to be like, wow, Figma is cool, or you're going to be like, that was easy, that was slow. So I hope you guys get something out of this first class.
And I'm going to put this out there now. Unless you're rocking dual monitors, this class might be a little bit hard to follow just because Sanjana will probably occasionally talk about stuff on her screen, and you might want to switch over to that tab and then try to recreate it on your own tab. So we'll try to talk slowly and deliberately and make sure you guys are able to follow along. But if you guys do fall behind or for any reason, don't hesitate to just send a message in the chat, and either I or one of our other officers will try to help you with whatever issues you might be having.
Yes, and if you want to just quick holler, you can raise your hand on Zoom as well, and I'll try to, you can unmute and ask a quick question. That's also totally fine. And as I see people getting on the file, how many people do we have? Do I need to wait more?
It looks like yeah, we have 7 by 7, so we have 49. We should be fine.
We can start.
Yeah.
Okay. Okie dokie. So today we are going to make, so the app that you saw, that's pretty much what we're going to be creating throughout this entire workshop series. So for today, we're just going to be making this screen. This is our lo-fi screen, which will translate into this hi-fi screen in the next class. First, before I even do anything, some basic Figma navigation tips. If you're using a mouse and you want to zoom in and out, you can press Command or Control on your keyboard and just use your scroll to zoom in and out. So, you know, you should be able to do something like that. And if you want to move across the space, so Figma is like a big canvas, and if you just want to move around, on my mouse, I just click on the scroll and I just move, so it gives me this hand tool. But if you're using a touchpad, you can just click on the touchpad and just drag it over. You should be able to drag the canvas as well. If neither of those work, in the bottom of your screen, you'll see a toolbar that has this arrow highlighted in blue. Click on that and you will see a hand tool. You can use that as well to move around. So you say you don't want to touch anything, you just want to move around. Click on the hand tool. Yeah, I see all the hands. Hey, high five. Okay, cute. You can just move around like that. Okie dokie. Now let's again go to the bottom of our toolbar, click on the hand and change it into the move tool so we can actually use the elements. First things, on your left side, you will see a big panel. Focus. So for this part, look at my screen, and then I'll tell you guys so you can go back to your screen to design. So I'll just be talking about my screen for this part. So you see here in the left panel, I have this Figma icon. This is just a bunch of settings, main menu. You'll see all the pages listed out here. And below that, you see this thing called layers. I'll talk about layers in just a second, but that's pretty much your left-hand panel. If you want to add pages, you can use this plus button to add, but you don't need to do that right now because we've set up the pages already. And on the right-hand panel, you'll see all the design elements that you need. Now, I'm just going to click on this frame to show you how many different things we have. So first, starting up here on the top right, we have position. So this is just alignment, like where you want to align your different things. This, when you hover on it, it tells you what it is. That kind of helps with Figma. The position, rotation. Also, I'm kind of sick, so sorry if I cough once in a while. Okay, and then we have layout, which is just the width and the height of the element that I'm selecting. Clip content. I'll go over the settings a little later, but you can see like there's appearance, this is opacity, how much you want to round the corners of your item, fill, which is the color. You have a bunch of other things too, like stroke, effects, etc., which we'll talk about. But pretty much to give you a quick sense, on your left side is more like high level things like page and layers, and the right side panel is what you're going to be staring at the most when you're actually designing for like your settings for designing. You'll see this other tab here called prototype. We won't go into that yet. For now, we're just going to be sticking in the design tab. Okay, so first what I want you guys to do is hopefully you're comfortable zooming in and zooming out. I want you to zoom out, pick one of these and just write your name on it. And I'll know where you guys are working. So just change the your name title to your name. And I'm going to make a little section for myself here so I can work with you guys. If you need any help, let me know.
You can change the title of your section by double clicking where it says your name and then just typing in your name.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, if you click on the section and move it around, it does move. So just try to double click on the actual title and you should be able to change the name.
And I noticed that some people are stuck on the cover page. So at the top left of the, or on the left side panel, there's a thing that says pages and there's a drop down under that. So you are going to start on cover. We're going to be working on something called Workshop 1, Introduction to Figma. So just click on that tab.
Okay, I think everyone has found a section. Again, if you need help, let us know anytime. So I'm gonna go to mine. So for this part, it's okay if you don't look at the Zoom. I'll try to make my instructions as clear as possible. You can just focus on your actual Figma and try to listen and follow along. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is on your bottom toolbar, I want to just give you an overview of what all these buttons mean. So the leftmost button on your toolbar is the move tool, which I just explained. And when you click on it, you'll have the hand tool and scale as well. You don't need to worry about that now, but let's keep it at the move tool. The button next to it is for making sections. So this is what I use to make sections for you guys. And there's also a couple of other things like frame, which will be very important today. So we'll talk about that. And the button next to it is a bunch of shapes. So each time there's a button, there's a little arrow that you can click to see all the possible shapes. So you can see rectangle, line, ellipse, polygon, etc., etc. And next to that, you'll see a bunch of other tools, which I'm not going to talk about yet, but one of them is the pen tool, text, leaving comments, and plugins. So we don't have to go into that yet. For now, I want everyone to just click on the rectangle, so which is the third button from the arrow. So click on the rectangle tool, and your cursor should become into a plus. If your cursor becomes into a plus, you're good. Go into your section space, click, and drag out a rectangle. So again, in your bottom toolbar, the third button from the left should be a rectangle. Just click on the rectangle. Make sure that your cursor has changed into a plus symbol and drag to create a rectangle. Or if you're interested in Figma shortcuts, make sure your cursor is not touching anything on the screen, just have it hovering, and just type R on your keyboard, and automatically you'll be able to create a rectangle. So either hit R on your keyboard or use the toolbar to do that. Yay, we have a bunch of rectangles. Make sure the rectangle is not taking up the entire section because you'll need the space to do other things. I think everyone else is looking good. Okie dokie. Now, I want you to select the rectangle, and on the right-hand side, you'll see that all these different elements that I talked about. If you look almost in the middle, you'll see a section called Fill, and it should have like the color of the rectangle. Mine's like D9, 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 D9. If you click on that, you can change the color however you wish. So if you've used design software before, you probably know this, but if you haven't, you'll see this big white circle. You can drag that around to change the color. And right below that, you'll see an eyedropper tool. And the first row that you see next to the eyedropper tool is to change the actual color gradient. So you can change between different colors if you drag the white circle. And then the row below that is for opacity. So if you drag the white circle there, you can change the opacity to be like 0% or 100%. And opacity is like how much visibility, like how much it shows. So if zero opacity means you can't see it at all. So that's that. There's a couple of other settings. There's a gradient, which is if you look at my Zoom real quick, you'll see me hover on the gradient. I just want to show you guys this quickly. There's gradient, video, image, blah, blah, blah. But for now, I just want you to pick your favorite color and make a rectangle. So you have a rectangle with a color. Good. Yay, colorful rectangles. Okie dokie. So that's pretty much it for like navigating Figma. I hope everyone's a little comfortable with the different things. And obviously there's a bunch of settings. I encourage everyone after class, just play through, click all the buttons, click everything, see what everything does. That's the best way to learn, especially in this initial stage. So now we're actually going to make this mobile screen. And I want you guys to look at the Zoom real quick, and then I'll give you guys a second to go on your Figma, okay? Especially if you're using a single laptop. So look at the Zoom for now. We are going to, on the bottom toolbar, we're going to click on the second button, and it's going to say frame. Now, on my right-hand side, I'll be able to select exactly what frame it is. So when I click the frame button, it changes into a hashtag, and I can actually select the frame that I want, which is going to be iPhone 13 and 14. Now you can go over to your Figma, try the same thing. I'll repeat the instructions. So you probably had the cursor in your toolbar, the second button, which when you hover on it, it should say section, but I want you to click on the arrow and select frame, or don't select anything on your keyboard and type F. When you do that, your right-hand panel should change into different phone screens and you should be able to select. I want everyone to select iPhone 13 and 14. Just click on it and it makes it'll make it somewhere else. It might not be in the section. So just when you see that iPhone 13 and 14 on your Figma, click on the actual text that says iPhone 13 and 14 and you can use that to drag it. You'll know that you're clicking on it if it's selected blue. So make sure you're clicking on the iPhone, drag it inside your section, and just place it in your section. Let's see, everyone has. I think we all do. Perfect. Okay. Now, let's look at the layer panel for a second. So if you can hop on the Zoom and see my screen. In the layer panel here, it's organized and it tells me exactly what I'm seeing on the screen, right? So it's on the left-hand side and you see that Sanj is the name of the section. And inside the section, I have an iPhone frame. And this is a symbol for a frame. So it says frame, iPhone 13, 14, 16, and then you can rename it. To rename the frame, just double click on the iPhone 13, 14 text, and you'll be able to rename it by whatever you want. So go over to your Figma, just make sure that when you click on it, you'll see that in your layers panel on the left side, it's highlighted so you know what exactly you're clicking on. And this layers panel will get more important as we add more elements to it, so I just want to point it out. Layers panel is on the left. Okay. Now we are going to change the color of the iPhone frame. If you did the rectangle, hopefully it's easier. Click on the name of the iPhone frame. On the right-hand panel, you will see fill, and mine says FFF white right now. We're going to click on that, and I'm going to change it to orange. You can change it to whatever color you want. So just pick a color for your iPhone. Okay, I think I see colorful iPhones. Cool. Now we are going to add the rest of the elements into it. So I want you guys to keep clicking on the iPhone frame. And when it's selected, it's in blue, right? On the bottom toolbar, we're going to make another rectangle. So you can either use the toolbar or you can click R on your keyboard. So whenever you're doing the keyboard shortcuts, make sure it's not selecting anything. So right now I'm just gonna unselect the iPhone frame. My cursor is not selecting anything. Click on R on your keyboard and it'll change into the plus symbol. Make sure you're drawing inside the iPhone frame. So just drag and draw a rectangle. And that is it. We've made a rectangle inside the frame. Now look on your left to your layers panel and you'll see how the elements are stacking up. We have a section, we have a frame, and we have a rectangle inside the frame. So it's all showing us in order like that. And some mistakes that people make sometimes when you're prototyping is your rectangle might not be inside the frame, so it might not show up. So just if sometimes something doesn't work and you're just so confused why things are not working in Figma, just always check your layers and make sure the elements are inside the frame that you want it to be in. Okay, now again, don't select anything on your keyboard, on your Figma, and click T on your keyboard. And this is how we're going to make a text box. So right under the rectangle, I'm going to drag and make a text box. And I don't know why my font size is gigantic. So I'm going to go to the right-hand panel. Mine says 400 right now, and I'm going to make that to like 90. So on the right-hand panel under typography, you should see a number where you can change the font size. I'm going to change mine to 90, and I'm just going to type the name of my app, which you can type whatever name you want for your app. So for this, we're going to type 365, because that's how many days we have in a year. So again, on my left-hand layers panel, I see my app, the frame, I see 365, the text, and I see a rectangle. So far, so good. Not checking the chat, but let me know if anyone needs help. Okay, and we're going to repeat this. So again, we're going to make another rectangle. So hopefully you're getting the hang of it, getting faster. I'm going to click R on my keyboard, and I'm going to draw a rectangle right below the 365. And I'm going to make it a little smaller. So I'm going to make the height a little smaller because this is actually going to be a button. and I'm just gonna leave it right there. Now, if you can hop over to the Zoom real quick, I want to show you something, and then you can go back to your Figma. So if you look at my Zoom, I'm having to zoom in a lot to be able to show this, but in the corner of each rectangle, you see these white circles. This is what you can use to make the edges rounded. Or if you aren't able to find it, on your right-hand panel, when you're keeping the rectangle selected, under Appearance, you'll see 100% and you'll see this little number right here. That's the corner radius, and you can manually type in a corner radius to adjust it as well. So if I say 50, see it's become a little more rounded. I'm just going to go with that's how I want my buttons to be. So now go over to your Figma, make a rectangle, and you can either use the white circle that you see. So when you're selecting the rectangle, you'll see this 4 white circles in each corner. You can use that, or on the right-hand panel, you could change the corner radius under the Appearance section. Got that? Anyone needs help with the corner radius, let me know. Okay, I'm going to assume that we are good. And I want to make 2 buttons, so I'm just going to copy this. We're going to click on the rectangle, Command C or Control C, and click outside the rectangle, Control V. If you look over to the zoom, my Figma just pasted the rectangle on top of the rectangle. So I know that in my left-hand panel, in my layers panel, I see that there's 2 rectangles, but visually I don't see it. So just click on the rectangle and drag it out, and you'll see that there's 2. So again, if I'm selecting the rectangle and I do Control C, Control V, it pastes it right over. So just click and drag. You can make that rectangle. So now that I have, sorry, now that I have 2 rectangles, I'm just going to position them closer. And you see Figma gives me these red lines. You'll see them, they help you with alignment just to keep things in place. So I have these 2 buttons right here. I'm going to keep them closer to each other. Now we're going to take the text that I made, and you can either copy paste it or you can make another text box. So I'm just going to click T on my keyboard, drag a text box inside the rounded rectangle. And on the right-hand panel, we're going to change the font size from 90 to like 30. I'm going to type like sign up. Oh, sorry again. Once you type that, I want you to select the whole thing, and I just want to show you things you can do with the text. So select the entire text. You're going to just double click on the words. And on the right-hand panel, you'll see under typography, looks like mine's in Poppins right now, but there's a bunch of different fonts. So feel free to change the fonts, do whatever you want, but that's the fonts. And right below that, you'll see bold, regular. So that's the way the text looks like. You can change it to whatever you want. Since this is the button, I'm just going to do like regular. And then right below that, you can adjust the line height, which is the spacing between 2 lines. So if you have like more text like a paragraph, you can adjust the height. And on the right, you can adjust the letter spacing, just the percentage. You can do the justification. So right now everything is center aligned, which is good. And you can also align it in between the box as well. So you know the text box that we made, right now it's top aligned, but if I change it to align middle, it'll make sure that the text fits inside the box. There's just small technical things that you want to keep note of. And I'm going to click on this text. You can move it around. I'm just moving it around. And if you look over to the Zoom real quick, I want to show you these grid lines. So say that, my text is outside, put it back in the rectangle. You see how it's giving me these red lines to center? The Figma is really helpful and it's smart like that. It'll align things for you. So that's pretty helpful. Okay, now back to your Figma. I'm just going to click on the first text. Command or Control C, Control V, copy paste it. Again, it pasted over the text. I'm just going to drag it down to the bottom, into the bottom rectangle. Position it right and change that to log in. So that is all we have to make this screen. Of course, there's a couple of other elements. If you look over to my Zoom, there's a couple of other elements, like we have the subtext, we have this text that's just underlined. So you could do all of that. If you're feeling really ambitious and you want to try, you are more than welcome to try and design the screen. Otherwise, we're going to get started with it next class, but you're more than welcome to play around with Figma, try to make this as pretty as you want, change things up. But I know it's a pretty short class for the first class. We are pretty much done. If you have any questions, if you're super new to Figma and you want me to walk over anything else, I'm happy to do so.
And for anyone who is planning on leaving soon, we are going to paste a feedback form in the chat. So please go ahead and click on that and fill it out. Just leave your thoughts, and that way we can better inform how we're designing our next classes. And like Sanjana said, this was pretty short. Our next courses will be a bit longer, so expect those to be more in the hour to hour and a half range. But for today, this was hopefully a pretty good introductory class, and hopefully you guys got something out of it. And again, we'll be sticking back for a while. So if you have any questions about how to do anything, feel free to unmute yourself or just type them in the chat.